Hello everyone and welcome back to Rapid MMA. This is brief technical analysis of upcoming fight cards, and today it is UFC Fight Night, Preux versus Glover Teixeira. Make sure that you guys share your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section, and compare your picks with mine with the link below in the description to my picks. Like or dislike this video based on my crummy opinion, and make sure to subscribe so that way you can argue with me every single time there's an event. So with that, let's get started. Starting with Christodoulou versus Holtzman. This is Holtzman's debut. He's very athletic. I think he used to play hockey. Just a really explosive athlete. And I have to say right away that I feel bad for Christodoulou because he keeps getting matched up with killers in the UFC, and he has had a short run in the UFC as well. For example, he fought Taisimov. That's just an absolute killer as well. I feel like there should have been a matchup with someone a little bit more on his level so he could gain momentum in his own right. Not to say that he doesn't have a chance against Holtzman, but they should have matched up Taisimov and Holtzman or something. So I don't see it faring well for Christodoulou. I mean, he's well-rounded, he's gritty, has wins via submission and TKO, but against the likes of Taisimov or Holtzman, I don't see it faring well for him. Holtzman is a great athlete, crisp, accurate striking, effective takedown defense, impressive wrestling. I just see this fight ending via second round TKO with Holtzman gaining momentum in his UFC debut. Second fight is Vera versus Salazar. This is an interesting styles matchup. I think it will be contested mostly on the feet. Vera has more creative striking. Salazar's stand-up kind of reminds me of Frankie Edgar's in a minimal sense. This is definitely a tight matchup, but I'm interested to see if it goes to the ground and how Vera would fare against an opponent like Salazar. I think he would have an opportunity to get a submission victory. However, Salazar's UFC's career has been rocky, and I think he'll try to gut this fight out against a game opponent. In the end, I see Vera winning by decision. I think the striking of Vera will mostly define this fight, and if it goes to the ground, Vera has an edge in my opinion. So I'm choosing Vera winning by decision. The last fight of the early prelims is Dempsey versus Wilson. Dempsey is 1-1 in the UFC, coming off a split decision win over Eddie Gordon. Dempsey is a wrestler, that's his main style. There's a clear differential between his stand-up and ground game, as we've seen in his fight against Latifi, where he was TKO'd in the first round. Doesn't help that he'll be moving up a weight class. It might, but changing weight classes, I would imagine, would be difficult on your body. And I think this one, again, is on short notice. I don't know, Dempsey trots forward, eating shots until he unwillingly goes for a takedown. But once it's secured, he holds his opponents down and he works for position. But on the other side, this is Wilson's debut, and I don't think he's faced any formidable opponent. Dempsey will be the most athletic and skilled fighter he's faced. However, since Wilson's striking is more refined and he does know how to sprawl, I'm sure he has some high school wrestling experience. At least that's what it kind of looks like in his fights. He may be able to work Dempsey on the feet. The question is, will Wilson be able to avoid the takedown? It's also important to note that Wilson hasn't fought in over a year. He claims he's been in the gym training. He has been preparing for fights in the past. I think Wilson gets the better of Dempsey early. I'm choosing Wilson to win first round TKO. If he can't execute in that way, then we're in for a long grueling decision. That probably goes to Dempsey. But for me, I'm choosing Wilson first round TKO. Saenz versus Kakai. This is a good fight for Kakai, an opportunity to showcase his skill set and get a decisive victory in the UFC. He's very calculated, understands the footwork very well, takes his time, and when he sees an opportunity to advance against his opponent, he takes it. Saenz uses a lot of movement and feints, but this is something Kakai is familiar with. I think Kakai throws those simple combinations and works angles. He's shown improvement in each fight, so I'm going to go for a third round TKO for Kakai. Next fight up is Ortiz versus Gates. Dustin Ortiz is a very tough fighter, and we saw that in the fight with Joseph Benavidez. He threw everything at him, couldn't take him out, and he was landing clean strikes. He does seem susceptible to the straight right, which Gates is probably going to land from across the octagon. So the question will be, is Dustin Ortiz able to handle the power of Willie Gates? And I think he will be able to. The second question to be answered is, will Gates be able to handle the strong wrestling skills of Ortiz? This is where I'm less confident. Ortiz is strong and dominant in grappling exchanges. Though he doesn't rely on it, Ortiz likes to counter strike in exchanges, but I'm not sure if he'll be able to land accurately on someone like Gates. Ortiz will be hit often, but I think he'll take the punches and walk forward, trying to close the distance, land his own strikes. I think he'll go for takedowns in the fight and wear Gates out. So I see Ortiz winning a split decision. Next up is Chris Camozzi versus Tom Watson. Tom Watson is the guy that'll take many punches to get inside and land his own. I don't think he's afraid of anyone on the feet. He'll always pressure forward. He is a decent striker. Striking defense is something to question at times, even though he does have an extensive boxing background. He can hold his own on the ground, only losing once by submission, but I wonder how well his chin holds up after fighting this long. Camozzi, on the other hand, doesn't output a lot of offense as of late. He did early against Souza, surprisingly, or Souza, which resulted in him getting backed against a fence and being taken down. I think Camozzi has to establish range, circle, avoid being backed into the fence. Avoid pressure is key because Watson will not stop trotting forward. I think this will be an exhausting stand-up battle with Watson taking it home via split decision. Next up is Uriah Hall versus Oliwal Bamgbose, and I hope I'm saying that right. Oliwal Bamgbose. UFC matchmakers are trying to do their best to find someone that Uriah Hall can display his potential against once again. They don't want to release him because what he's capable of. His technique is impeccable, but he always seems to go about 50% against his opponents, and he admits this. He likes to just go out there, he likes to feel it out, he likes to trade and keep it technical. Obviously that's pitted against him because everybody wants to see the crazy knockout that he did in The Ultimate Fighter. And I think that this is why Bamgbose is now in the UFC. He is good. I think he's a Ring of Combat champion, middleweight champion. And he's not afraid to engage with anyone. Throws many creative strikes, he's fast and powerful, and he has a winning record. This is the perfect guy for Uriah Hall to get another highlight reel knockout against. What I've noticed from Bamgbose is that he does have the ability to compete in the UFC, but at what extent? Personally, I think he leaves himself wide open for counter strikes and mostly takedowns. And here's how I see it. Bamgbose comes with side-to-side movement, pressures forward, Hall avoids flailing strikes from Bamgbose and counters with fast jabs, follows up with basically whatever the hell he wants. Otherwise, he does what he did against Howard and takes him down and wears him out. Either way, I think this is the finish the UFC wants from Hall. This is the finish Uriah Hall wants. And I think I'm going to go for a second round submission for Uriah Hall. Next up is Ray Borg versus Herrera. Ray Borg is seemingly a student of the game, and what I mean by that is he is ever improving, learns from his mistakes, and he's confident to take chances. Herrera is very cold, very calculated, calm in his demeanor, and look to damage from any position. Very good in the clinch, counter strikes effectively, and works to advance position either off his back or when he's on top. This has Fight of the Night written all over it, in my opinion. Two very talented prospects looking to shine. However, I think this fight goes to the mat with Herrera working reversals or submissions to gain dominant top control. So I'm going to go Herrera rear naked choke in the first round. Next up is a striker versus grappler match between Sarah McMann and Amanda Nunes. McMann's obviously the dominant wrestler, and that's where she wants this fight. We learned this in Nunes versus Kat Zingano, and that's what McMann wants, minus the first round beatdown Nunes gave Zingano. In short, McMann will close distance and look to get the fight down. I think Nunes does well on the feet, but inevitably gets into a clinch war and taken down, so I have McMann winning via decision. Next up is Jared Rosholt versus Johnson. This will be a very interesting fight on the feet because both guys are looking to do the same thing, and that's get the fight to the ground. So I'm curious the outcome because takedowns could be negated, and this could be mostly contested striking. But I think the likely possibility is Johnson getting in close to clinch against the fence, and this is where I see Rosholt having a strength advantage, and I think he's probably the better wrestler. Seems more athletic than Johnson as well, so in my opinion I see Rosholt reversing a lot of Johnson's attempts and working Johnson hard, so I'm going through third round TKO via Rosholt. Next up we have Brunson versus Alvey. This is a very interesting fight as well. Brunson can lose because of Alvey's very smart assessment of his opponent's movement and footwork. He knows when to counter and when to lead with the attack, but his obvious weakness is his wrestling. He's susceptible to takedowns, but does know how to explode up to his feet and also reverse position. But will he be able to do it against Brunson? The problem with Brunson is he's confident on his feet, but he's smart to fall back to his wrestling. If Brunson wants to gain an early advantage, he should do what Dylan Andrews did and trade until Alvey's hips are right for a takedown. He'll be able to secure Alvey and work positions better than Andrews did. He needs to wear him down, but overall I think Alvey has a cardio advantage, as Brunson works for these takedowns, needs the shots trying to get them. I think this will be a war, but Alvey gaining a TKO victory in the 3rd round is what I think is going to happen. Next up, Johnson versus Dariush. You can say this with any fight, but this one in particular has plenty of variables, and I read plenty of articles saying this will be an exciting fight since they're rising prospects. I've seen a lot of people taking Johnson over Dariush via decision, and this is obviously a possibility. I'm going to make my prediction short for this one. Johnson's speed and footwork will pose problems for Dariush. Dariush's fights long with reaching strikes, looks for counters pretty well, but essentially ties it up and works in the clinch or on the ground, where Dariush should shine in this fight. I say Johnson works quickly and tries to finish, so I'm going to go Johnson TKO in the 1st round. Finally, we have Teixeira versus St. Preux. This is a great matchup for St. Preux. We get to see what he's made of against a veteran. Teixeira has been tested, and he really hasn't looked bad even against John Jones. The scary thing is St. Preux's counter-striking, his power, and his length, all of which Teixeira has dealt with before against John Jones. Of course, there's an argument for St. Preux having more power than Jones, but even so, the experience matters most to understand the angles and advantages they share, and how Teixeira is able to avoid those. I've read a lot of people counting out Teixeira, citing that he's probably on the downside of his career, and this may be true at 35 years old, but you can tell Teixeira is finally hitting his stride at this age. You can't slump all fighters together. I know with age, inevitably you're not going to be as good, but some just have a different clock, and I think that's true with Teixeira. In my mind, he really only has one loss, and that's to Phil Davis, because John Jones is simply undisputed. The key thing to note is just that though, Ovince's team has the Jones versus Teixeira fight to study. At the end of the day, I would imagine that St. Preux is a better athlete. I'd imagine he's more explosive, and when the going gets tough, he can take the fight to the ground and be safe. I think a lot of energy would be expended from both sides, but St. Preux should be able to capitalize and secure victory in the latter portion. I think he hurts Glover and finds a way to finish. So I'm going with St. Preux via submission in round 3. No one will like this pick, but I always go against my gut, and this time I'm going to stick with it. And that wraps up Rapid MMA, Glover Teixeira versus St. Preux. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one, which is UFC Fight Night, Holloway versus Oliveira. Make sure that you leave a comment below with your thoughts and opinions on my picks, and please share your own. Don't forget to click the link that leads you to my picks, so that way during the event you can compare your picks with mine. Also, don't forget to like or dislike based on your thoughts and feelings, and please subscribe so that way we can discuss in the next upcoming event. Thanks again for watching.